name of Allah, the merciful, Assalamu alaikum, and free the land. My name is Jamil, and I am a member of the Malcolm X grassroots movement, presently based in Columbus, Ohio. I want to welcome all of you to our first Free 'em All Toward a Revolutionary Ramadan. We are so happy to be here with you all today to bring in the month of Ramadan. And we're here for our annual Black Love in Action celebration, in which we fight for our political prisoners. So, Love in Action Political Week is a week-long series of political education, cultural events, and community outreach centered on solidarity with political prisoners and the ongoing struggle to free them all. Black Love in Action actually began with the campaign to free Dr. Mutulu Shakur, and it continues our organization's commitment to free all of our political prisoners. BLA 2026 affirms that love, when rooted in community, commitment, and collective struggle, is a powerful force for liberation. So today we're going to talk about Ramadan, but we're also going to talk about the role of Islam in the Black freedom struggle. Islam has long been a spiritual force in the Black liberation struggle, shaping the lives and work of many of our revolutionary heroes. Today we come in remembrance and dedication to our beloved ancestors, El-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, El-Hajj Saladin Shakur, Queen Mother Assata Shakur, Zaid Malik Shakur, Lumumba Shakur, Efeni Shakur, Masai Ahe Hosi, Baba Bilal Sunni Ali, Mama Fulani Sunni Ali, Sekou Odinga, Safia Bukhari, Nur Abdul Qayyum, Aminah Amatul Haq, Khalid Rahim, who passed on February 14th a few days ago, Imam Jamil Abdullah Alamin, and so many others whose name we recognize, but even those comrades and elders whose names we may never hear. We also come in commitment to working for the freedom of our current political prisoners, including Kamal Siddiqui, Reverend Joy Powell, Imam Abdul Malik Kaba, also known as Jeff Fort, Imam Abdullah Siddiq Hassan, and countless others who are held in captive in the prisons. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless those who are presently among us, who are tirelessly working for freedom, justice, equality, and the liberation of our political prisoners, some of whom we'll hear from tonight. What's the call? Free them all. We have a very exciting program tonight. Tonight, we had our comrade Akil, who discussed what is MXGM. Of course, I introduced BLA Week. We also have an opening dua from one of our members, Josh Reaves, that will come next, a Quranic recitation and reflection by Dr. Aminah al-Deen, a recitation of a letter on Islam and Black liberation by Dr. Aminah Wadud, who will also offer some reflections, a panel on Islam, Black liberation, and the struggle to free them all, featuring our own Jomo Mohammed, Dr. Suad Abdul Khabeer, and Jihad Abdulmumit. And we also have a call to action as well, a poem by our very own Shabazz, and a closing dua as well. So today we will also have a reading, as I mentioned, by Assata Shakur on Islam and the Black liberation struggle, and we'll discuss some of the issues she raises in her letter. Assata practiced Islam for a few years in the 1970s. More recently, this has been discussed in a chapter titled Assata the Muslim in a recent 2025 book by Atiya Hussein called No God But Man on Race, Knowledge, and Terrorism. We will also remember Safia Bukhari, one of the co-founders of the Jericho movement to free all political prisoners, who was a soldier in the Black Liberation Army, Black Panther Party, and a conscious citizen of the Republic of New Africa. While incarcerated as a political prisoner herself, Safia liberated herself from prison while facing brutal medical neglect in order to see a physician and get the treatment she needed, but also brought attention to the issues of vicious brutality and medical neglect other women in prison faced as well. There are some reflections on the inspiration for escape. These reflections come from an essay she wrote titled Islam and Revolution is Not a Contradiction. She writes, Over the next month, I went back and forth, reading Quran and making salat over this issue. I studied hadith, written traditions of the Prophet Muhammad on shirk. I read the Quran on faith and the oneness of God. I wrestled with my belief. Finally, on a basic level, I concluded that nothing happens to us without the permission of Allah. This may sound simple and matter of fact, but it's not. There was an entire analysis on the process I went through before this to before this became real to me. For me as a revolutionary, death is something I live with daily and constantly. I enunciated death clearly, the concept that wherever death may surprise us, it will be welcome. As long as this is our battle cry, reach some receptive ear and another hand reach to intone our uh, funeral dirge with the staccato machine gun fire and new cries of battle and victory. In dealing with the government of the United States of America, I was very clear that they were just men and women, while Allah was God. Him alone should I fear. It was on December 31st, 1976, that Safia escaped from the Virginia Correctional Center for Women. In 2026 will represent the 50th anniversary of this escape. She would be recaptured on February 21st, 1977, and used her case for the many oppressed women behind bars to advocate for them. In 1983, she received parole and helped lay the foundation for the work we are doing today to work toward freeing our political prisoners. So now I will pass the mic on to one of our very own members, Joshua Reaves, who will offer an opening dua for our program today.
Okay, great. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. I'm Joshua. I'm a Muslim. I'm a member of the Philly chapter of the Malcolm X grassroots movement, and I'm a conscious new African citizen. This Ramadan actually commemorates 1,402 years since the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions fought in the Battle of Badr, inshallah. The night before the battle, when the Muslims were outnumbered by the people of the Quraysh, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was reported to have said, "O Allah, fulfill what you have promised. O Allah, grant what you have promised. O Allah, if this small band is destroyed, you will not be worshipped on earth. Allahumma anjiz lima wa adtani. Allahumma atima wa adtani. Allahumma intulik hadihi al-isaba min al-Islam latubad fi al-ard." O Allah, grant the victory you have promised. Allahumma nasraka alladhi wad adtani. Allah is sufficient for us, and He is the best disposer of affairs. Hasbuna Allahu wa nima al-wakil. O Allah, just as you answered your messenger at Badr in this blessed month, answer the prayers of the oppressed in our time, and grant our oppressed people victory. Make us people of patience, of courage, and of truth this Ramadan. Amin.
Thank you very much, Josh. So now we will proceed to Dr. Aminah al-Deen, who will offer a Quranic recitation as well as some remarks.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Malik Yawm Middin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina sirata mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. In the name of Allah, the merciful or compassionate, people translate it both ways, the beneficent. And I wanted to just make a quick comment that these are two significant attributes that we use every day and every prayer. We are to focus on the wonder of God. And if we appreciate it, then our response should be praise and worship. We pray to be guided toward the straight path. We recognizing that God is the king of the day of judgment, not the marches we have. Also, that if it's God alone that we worship, and to be careful about what we worship. And I wanted to just comment on the end where we're asked for Allah to light up this straight path and to keep us from going down the path of those who go astray. And the straight path is one of toil and trial, constant struggles with moral, material, cultural, social, and political complexities in our ever-changing society. But if we put a little notebook next to our Quran this Ramadan, we can note where we discover the principles in the Quran that will keep us from being on the path of those who go astray. Because there are paths all over challenging and presenting themselves to us as a straight path. Salaam alaikum, Amina.
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much. So now we will proceed to Dr. Aminah Wadud, also known as the Lady Imam, and she will recite a letter by Assata Shakur on Islam and the Black freedom struggle and offer some remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I begin, as I always begin, in the name of Allah, whose grace I seek in this and in all other matters. I do have to say, since we're so serious right here, that I think it's funny that they let my sister Aminah do the Quran commentary, and then they asked me to comment on Assata Shakur's letter when actually I have very limited knowledge about her. So I want to preface by saying, I am grateful to Brother Jimmy O, sent me a lot of information so I could at least make some comments. So this is the letter from Assata Shakur to Albert Noor, Washington, aka Noor Abdul Qayyum. It was written on July 2nd, 1973. Keep that number in mind as I'm going to come back to it. Love to you, brother. And then there's a name that we can't read. How you be? I hope you are feeling as high-spirited and as strong as your letters are sounding. Your letters made me feel very happy. It felt good to hear from home. I'm sorry that I haven't written sooner, but getting a letter out of this jail is almost as difficult as getting our freedom out of the Caracas. Where did you hear that I've become Muslim? I am curious to know more about Islam, mainly because so many Black people are embracing it. I've never related much to gods, like from out of the sky and stuff like that, because only the things that I can see, hear, touch, and conceive of seem real to me. I don't relate to the concept of no all-powerful, all-knowing God either, because to me, they would have to be some kind of sadist to permit all this suffering. The thing that I relate to about Islam is the feeling of unity, love, and strength that I have felt from brothers and sisters that I know who relate to Islam. In a way, I think Islam brings about the kind of lifestyle that is conducive to revolutionary struggle. And I think that Islam teaches discipline, strong sense of family, unity, and pride, which are necessary in our struggle for freedom. Much of our former lifestyle is negative, gets in our way, and we've got to create a new one. If Islam will help our struggle for liberation, then I will embrace it with open arms. But I've got a lot of questions. I would like to know, for instance, more about the Jihad. She spells it Jahad. She says, I don't know how to spell too good. In other words, the holy war, Jihad. Also, I am a revolutionary woman, and I take the position that anyone who raises a hand to harm me will be dealt with like an enemy. But if I remember right, the Quran says it is cool for a man to beat his wife. I cannot relate to that. Also, though I do not relate to that white women's liberation mess, I do not believe in submissiveness because I think it is a dangerous attitude for a revolutionary woman to have. It causes at the least liberalism and hesitation, which can get people killed. I'm talking about this because I have met many Muslim sisters who behave in a submissive manner. I got a beautiful letter from Brother Carl, last name not clear, who is also at the tombs. If you see him, please tell him that I will write to him as soon as I can. In his letter, he asked if I am a Sunni. However, I do not really know just what that is exactly. Do you know what Sunnis believe? I was reading in Jet 621 about Brother Burton and Brother Bowen, who are accused of exing the warden and deputy warden at Holmesburg in Philly. I know that Jet is not reliable, but they quote Ali Abdulaziz, who they say is an Orthodox Sunni minister. These people are not, this is the quote, these people are not representing the Muslims. During my meetings with them, I impressed on them that they were undergoing punishment for things they did before they were Muslim. Burton and Bowen were jailed for earlier police killings. If that is representative, then you must know what I think of Sunni. Was it a Sunni minister that was trying to talk the brothers in the gun store into coming out? Anyway, I have asked to see a Muslim minister, and I hope that he will help me clear up some of the questions in my head. In this place, none of the inmates are permitted to read newspapers. I'm in a closet and I don't know what is going on in the world. Clark Squire is in the same predicament. Any news sent out this way will be appreciated. I would like some suggestions of stuff to read. I like to stay away from big fat books with big fat words because they usually make me fall asleep. I do not think that you can send any books here or anything like that. Even though this is a bad time for revolutionaries, my spirits are high and I'm confident that we are going to win. Since I was shot, the way Black people have responded has been beautiful. Black nurses have worked weeks without taking a day off so they could make sure I was all right. People have done all kinds of beautiful things, and many people have asked what they could do for our struggle. Most of our sisters here are hungry for knowledge and want to know what they can do. I would like ideas on books for them to read that are easy and clear and politically educate. I think that it is clear examples, victories, and understandings that will take us out of this phase of our struggle, out of the phase that our struggle is in. As for my health, I'm fine, except for my right hand, which is still slightly paralyzed. My lawyers go to court Friday to get physical therapy order. What sentence did Bloods and Queen get? We'll say goodbye now and get my sleep. Stay strong. Give my love to the brothers. Love, Assata. And this was quoted from, actually, it's a handwritten letter from the Black Panther Party archives of Frank Adams Johnson, also known as Malika, in the Margaret Walker Center at Jackson State University. So being that, I have limited knowledge, I want to make just a few comments because about a year before this letter was written, I took my Shahada and I was in the city of Philadelphia at the time. So that meant that I was immersed in the intersection that was happening in a very dynamic way between Black Americans and our understandings of Islam. And this is, mostly where I want to pitch my comments. At the time, I also thought, for example, if I have big questions, that the people that I should ask would be the ministers, and in this case, they were all male. And what happened instead is, over time, and alhamdulillah, because we have some representatives of this, amongst our panel, over time, we understood that we also need to read big fat books with big fat words, and not only that, if Muslims are cool, we have to write big fat books with big fat words. And that is because every place where Islam has spread, the people of that place can only truly, in their hearts, minds, and souls, can only truly embrace Islam if the Islam that they embrace relates to their own lived reality. So, living as she did as a revolutionary woman, she needed to have Islam represented as coherent with regard to that struggle. And some of the stuff that she was finding out about was not aligned with that. Well, guess what? I found out about a lot of that same stuff too. And I eventually came to understand that we have to, within our own context worldwide, but specifically in terms of people living in struggle, we have to absorb what are the principles and values with regard to Islam as they align with the necessities of our lived realities and our freedom liberation struggles. And so, as a consequence, I am very happy to say that as the 50 years or so that have passed since that time, 55 to be exact, we have become producers of knowledge. So now part of African American Islam and part of our Islamic movement is to contribute to how Islam is understood and how Islam is put into implementation. You know, in the 1970s, we all read books in English that have been translated by people from South Asia. And trust me, I live in Southeast Asia right now. Some of the stuff that we were reading there and calling that stuff Islam was very detrimental to our health. So for my sister who now resides in the company and bosom of Allah, I just want you to say, sis, we took care of that we did become producers of knowledge. And with this, I give my salaam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much, Dr. Wadud. And now we will move toward the panel discussion on Islam, Black liberation, and the struggle to free them all. So at this point in the program, I will invite Jomo to introduce this panel and as well as participate in this panel. Also, we have Dr. Suad Abdul Khabeer. Jomo is a longtime member of the Malcolm X grassroots movement, as well as the National Information Coordinator, as well as a member of the New African Peoples Organization, and he also sits on the Free Amal Committee. We also have Dr. Suad Abdul Khabeer. Dr. Suad is an artist, activist, and a scholar, a professor at the University of Michigan. She has a recent project called Umi's Archive, in which she looks at the narratives of Black Muslim women, particularly focusing on her mother, Aminah Amatul Haq, who was a member of the Black Panther Party in New York. She also is the author of the book Muslim Cool, Race, Religion, and Hip Hop in the United States. And we also have Jihad Abdulmumit. Jihad Abdulmumit is the chairperson of the Jericho movement that we discussed earlier today. And he also is a veteran of the Black Liberation Army and the Black Panther Party as well. So we look forward to hearing from you all, as well as the questions Jomo is going to ask. Additionally, if any of our previous contributors would like to contribute to the panel as well, you know, like Dr. Aminah Wadud, as well as Aminah al-Deen, just please let us know and we will bring you all into the conversation as well. Thank you all very much, and we look forward to hearing from you. Jomo himself has some awesome questions also, as a Muslim who has been drawn into the work of Black liberation via Islam as well.
All right. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Jamil. Thank you. You can see his passion and really it's been a shaping force in this workshop and bringing this webinar together. So really excited to be in conversation with you too, and kind of again laying out the kind of the perspectives of it. Right. It was definitely Malcolm's Muslim Cool. The picture of him standing at the window that drew me in the KRS-One My Philosophy video that grabbed my attention, and I needed to find out who he was. And so I went to the library, found the autobiography of Malcolm X and read it, devoured it. Changed, as Malcolm talks about, a book can change your life. That changed my life, set me on the path that I'm on here now, and have me at this particular moment. So I give thanks and praise, and excited to meet it. So let's get right into it because Jamil did the heavy lifting of introducing us. So we heard Assata's letter written to Albert Washington Nunn, who was also a member of the Black Liberation Army, also a political prisoner, raising some questions around the practice, the connection of Islam, Black liberation as a political prisoner. So want to start there and ask you to share about the kind of offer your reflections on Assata's letter, and share with us a little bit about your own journey to becoming new African Muslim organizers, and we'll go in the African sense with the elders. So we'll start with Baba Jihad.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Muhammadin Nabi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ba'd. Alhamdulillah. All praise be to Allah. Peace and blessings on the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family and companions, all of them together, and whatever comes after. I am so honored to be here listening to these intriguing things, especially Assata's letter. I think I was privy to that through Kamal before a while, decades ago. And by the way, when I was in prison with Kamal Siddiqui is the one that gave me my Shahada too. So it's a direct connection there with Kamal, and that was in the FCI, Federal Correction Institution in Oxford, Wisconsin. So back in 1976. So what I think about Assata's letter, she's our dear comrade, beloved comrade. She set a blazing trail for us to follow, an example for us to, but she was very lacking in information about Islam, straight like that. Basic things that she said that would make a person that's not a Muslim say, yeah, that's a deep question, but those questions have been answered. We can pick them apart one by one. They've been answered. But the confusing thing about it, as my dear sister before said, that sometimes the practice, oftentimes, more too often, some the times, the Muslim practice is not the best for us to look at. But what we should look at is what Allah and His Messenger said, what's in the Quran and what's in the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You can't look to too many Muslim governments for that example, because that's bad. They wouldn't even stand up with the courage to even support Muslim brothers and sisters and anybody, all people that's living in Gaza that's been exterminated by the Zionists, clearly a racist, fascist government supported by this racist, fascist government, and didn't have to go because they're in bed with the colonialists. So there's a lot to unpack there. So it can be demoralizing in that sense, but it comes from lack of education and understanding of Islam. So so what I think about Sister Assata's letter, I respect her, but she didn't know a lot. I think her understanding was very low about Islam. That's as simple as that, and I love the sister. It's not the fact of Black liberation. It's the fact of Islam coming first and us struggling against any all forms of oppression in our life, because Allah is not going to ask you, did you free yourself when you die? And we will die. That's not the question that's going to be asked. That's not the purpose of our life. And many of us that do not understand Islam put that first. That's not first. It's not first for Jihad Abdulmumit. And so somebody can say, well, what? Don't say nothing. Because you're talking about being in the struggle since 16 years old. So somebody said, well, don't say nothing about involvement on the boots on the ground, picking up weapons, fighting this government, doing time in prison, and still being actively involved. Don't say nothing. Because Islam is what kept me moving. And you will die. And just like it was said in the beginning, our whole purpose in life is to worship Allah. I'm going to cut it short. I don't know how much time I have. The word ibadah, it's not just the ritual praying, making dua or supplications. It also deals with our conduct, our attitude, because Islam is a complete system. It's not like a religion. It is a way of life. Infused in there is the politics, the economics, the healthcare, the care of the planet, all those things, as decreed by Allah in the Holy Quran. But we don't read the Quran. Not we, but the Quran is not read. So you may have comrades give a whole list of books from Fanan to this and that. I dare you to read the Quran. You're talking about billions of people. You're talking about a sleeping giant in this world. And it is sleeping in many places. Read the Quran. Read what Allah himself says. You tell me to read a book about this person. Okay, that's fine and good. But did you read the book that, did you know that Russell Maroon Schultz, did you know that Abdulmumit, Noah Washington, Sekou Dinger, all our comrades, not all, but many of our comrades, Kamal Siddiqui, what is the deal? So you got t-shirts that said, be like Maroon, be like Sekou. Are you going to really? So two things that made Sekou stand out on our agenda in our minds. The fact that he picked up a weapon and fought, and the fact that he was a Muslim. So are you going to do any one of them? You going to pick up a weapon? Or you going to take your shot at being Muslim, or take that t-shirt off? What else? We wouldn't even honor Sekou. He's a good father. He's a good husband. He's a good caretaker. All these things, because I spoke at his memorial. All these things, but that's all these things that you can say about any one of us. I hope when we pass. But what you can't say about all of us, did we fight with that level of fighting? Be like Sekou? I don't know about that. You better check what you're saying and what you really mean. I know it's faddish to say that, and it's good that you say it. Because maybe that's the path that you're taking for more enlightenment. But the point I'm making in terms of Assata's letter, I think she just didn't have a lot of information. She did not have a lot of information. And then she goes to Cuba and she passed away. I talked to Consistent, her daughter. What her stepdaughter, her daughter, excuse me, stepdaughter. What Consistent said? Assata, one of the main things that was her underlying health condition was loneliness. She died, of a heart attack. And that stress, that constant stress of loneliness. So, in a communist country, I doubt that, if you were inclined to Islam, if you went to a communist country, that you're going to be fed a steady diet that's going to edify you and grow you in Islam. It probably was not even in the picture, and have physical freedom, which I'm glad she didn't die in prison. But I just want to add that she didn't have the information that we have today. So you have some Muslim that's involved in the struggle, that comes first. In my life, it comes first. It comes first. That the obedience to Allah, which fighting against oppression is all a part of it. If you're going to look to another government, Saudi Arabia, all these people that are just in bed with the colonizers, then that's going to throw you off big time. If you're going to look at some of these South Asian countries that is oppressing women, that is so super patriotic, don't know what to do, it's horrible, it's reprehensible, then that's going to really throw you off. But there's too many examples about the beauty of Islam that keeps us moving. And it is a major threat for the United States government. It's a major threat. So anyway, I have more to say, but I'll pass.
Yeah, we got more questions for you, but you came out swinging. I love the energy, absolutely, and appreciate the answers and coming straight with it. Dr. Khabeer, what you got on it?
Yeah, Abdul Khabeer or Swad or whatever is cool. Yeah, I love the letter. It was great. I actually had not read it before. And there's just so much to say about it. Like Baba Jihad, there's just so much to say. I have slightly different perspective, right? But there's so much to say about it. Connecting even like to Nuh Qayyum, like, when I think Jamil read part of Safi Bukhari's letter, and she talks about him introducing her to Islam, right? And then he mentioned my mother, and the part of the thing that so in that same article, she talks about taking a shahada in 1971 at Greenhaven Correction Facility, and Imam Rasul giving her shahada. I'm checking to make sure I'm not, because I have it right. And my mother took her shahada in 1975 at Greenhaven Correctional Facility, right, with Imam Rasul, right? So it was this kind of really interesting connection. And my mother, when she talked about becoming Muslim, a nod to you, Brother Jomo, she was like, she read the Al-Biography of Malcolm X, right? And it kind of, when she was younger, before she became Muslim, but when she was like a teenager, when it came out, she read that, and it made her, it leaned her towards Islam. But the things that she said that she was kind of hesitant about when she talked about her experience was like, one, she was like, she felt the Arabs had enslaved the Africans. So she was like, I'm not really interested in that. And she was kind of like, she didn't know she didn't really want to cover and she didn't want to start partying. Like, these were these kind of things that she enjoyed that she thought as a Muslim she wouldn't be able to do, right? And so these were the kind of things that initially like sort of got in the way, but ultimately, Allah makes Muslims. So she found her own ways to sort of reconcile with those things and the different ways she lived her life differently. But I think, and then I also want to say one other thing before I want to point to something about the letter. It's interesting because I think when I first came across Safi Bukhari's essay, Islam and Revolution is Not a Contradiction, I was confused by the title because I was kind of like, who would ever say it was a contradiction? And that's because of how I was raised, right? So I was raised, right, by people who Black Muslims, people who became Muslim, who had a radical revolutionary politic before they became Muslim. So they had that as Muslim, and that's how I was raised. So I thought these two things go together, right? And then you meet other people, and they're like, well, actually, there are all these questions. And so while I think I agree with both with Auntie Aminah, Dr. Aminah Wadud, and with Baba Jihad around like, well, one, what the questions that Assata Shakur had in that letter can be answered two ways. So I don't think it's true that she didn't know a lot about Islam, because there are Muslims today who will point you to the Quran and will point to a verse and will say, this means this, right? Today. And they, this happens, right? Religions, like everything else, are interpreted through human beings, right? And so her questions, I think, are valid. I think, particularly as a woman, like these are the things people tell you all the time, all kinds of crazy things that they don't think is crazy. And from their perspective, it's not crazy, right? But so I think her questions are really valid. And I was reading it like, yeah, people ask those kind of questions, right? And I think part of I guess my response or the response of other women like Dr. Aminah was mentioning is to be like, okay, people have said X about it, right? But is that really what it means? Is that really what Allah is talking about? Is that really what was the practice of the Prophet, right? Is that how we should even understand it? Even if it says X, Y, or Z in a particular way, is that actually what it means, So this is all this kind of like, interpretation that people do. And so I think when I first read the letter, I thought, like, these are really good questions that she's asking. I think to her point, Dr. Amma's point about like, the religion and our faith, and this is what I love about this idea of revolutionary Ramadan. And a couple of years ago on social media, I was like, I want a revolutionary Ramadan, right? In terms of not just thinking about, well, in a lot of different ways, but that's why I was really excited. And I meant to say at the beginning, thank you for the invitation to be on this panel tonight. But it's like, how do we understand like this idea of piety, right? Being a pious or a righteous Muslim in a way. There are two things I guess I want to end on, and then we can move to other questions. One is that piety beyond ritual, right? So the idea is that, and I think this is part of also what Robert Jihad was talking about, like if you're not freeing people, like you're praying, right? But you're not freeing people. Like those two things should be happening at the same time, right? If you're praying, you're fasting, but also like you're actually, like it's also pious, right? To dismantle systems of oppression. That's also an act of piety, right? And you don't have to choose between the two. But I think sometimes people choose and they get really, bent out of shape about like on the length of your beard or how your scarf is or whatever. Meanwhile, the person next to them, their neighbor is hungry. And there's a hadith about that. There's a tradition of the Prophet Muhammad, right? About like, if your neighbor is hungry, like something is wrong, right? But then also, I think this idea of the rituals though, as powerful tools. So one of the things that I was really impressed about Safi Bukhari's letter is like, not only does she free herself, but she says, Allah told me I was going to free myself and I was going to return. Like that's a kind of witnessing, right? A kind of connection to the divine. Like, I can't tell you what's gonna happen to me tomorrow. You know what I mean? So like there's a connection that she's having and she's made, right? That I think is also really powerful. So I think also these rituals, also are actually powerful tools that we should be using more, right, in our efforts, right, to fight injustice and not just kind of personal practices. So.
Absolutely. I think you're reading right into what we were trying to be up to by organizing this panel, this discussion, right? And part of in my own journey and how I understood Islam is that as Muslims, we're supposed to be at the cutting edge of social change. We're supposed to be at the cutting edge of doing those things. That freeing people is part of a firmament of our faith, right? That liberation is not just a political slogan; it's a mandate. Like my God wants me to be free. He wants you to be free. And so I just appreciate that, and then also the wrestling of opinions, the seeking to find unity in between. I think again that's what oftentimes I believe makes it such a beloved community, is that we can have diversity, we can agree, we can touch and agree on these things, and still hold true to what brings us together. So want to go back to you, Baba Jihad. So you mentioned it a little bit. You started to get into some of the litany, and I think Jamil started to lay out kind of the pantheon of what we would say new African Muslims, Sekou, Safari, Washington Nunn, the Shakurs. So I would love for you to talk about, go even more deeper around how you understood how your faith helped you in the heat of struggle, helped you endure decades of incarceration, and helping you to live your life now in this moment.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know, big questions.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the question. Very thought-provoking, and it causes me to reflect on my life all the time, which I think we should always be in a process of evaluating, reevaluating our own, thinking, and so I guess it's almost a way of self-criticism, critiquing yourself all the time. So the question begs me to do that. Yeah, it was obviously a game changer for me. For comrades who do not know, I was joined the Panthers when I was 16, and subsequent to that went underground in the Black Liberation Army to get money, really just to help, purchase land, and weapons, and travel, and the whole underground movement. So I had my case involved bank robbery cases for that particular purpose. I ended up with the shootout in January 23rd in Columbus, Ohio, 1976. Ended up doing 23 years in prison as a result of that. But while I was in prison, before that, I debunked Christianity, and all due respect if anybody is a Christian, and because the way it was portrayed, we came up through the cultural revolution of the 60s. I'm 71 years old now. And, understanding race, our culture, about slavery, we read books. I mean, books and books and books, and we competed in our reading back then. It was mandatory, and joining the Panther Party and understand your social, political, and economic reality. And so recognizing the history of Christianity and the racism in there, but I actually believed in God all the time, but it never came out to how to even practice something like that. Definitely not going to submit to any images of white people or anything like that. So that was out of the question. But when I went to prison and got, with Kamal and other brothers there, if I mentioned the names, you wouldn't know them, but definitely raising them up in the space here. It's a whole explanation about the belief in God. But one thing that really got me, the fact that it was the lack of images. It's not white people, it's not that, and even the depiction of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, there's no images of him. And, people that try to, so there's no worshiping the image and all of that as such, as we find out in the faith of Christianity as we know it here in the United States. And then to learn that Jesus himself is mentioned more times than Prophet Muhammad in the Quran by far. And so it wasn't debunking Jesus, as a prophet. It put everything in perspective. But the main thing that got me, that took me beyond Black liberation, all due respect to everybody here, which I went to prison for and fought with a weapon, was the fact that the ultimate purpose of our life is to obey our Creator. And no, it is more than a set of rituals, but it's the rituals that are, if you make them just rituals, then that's bad. But it's the rituals that, even as Dr. Abdul Khabeer said, is that moves us to the next level. But it can't be just rituals and leave it there. And to realize that victory and success comes from Allah. You can do nothing and win. or you can do a lot and lose. I mean, that's a test in life. And if it's based upon us gaining our liberation, then I guess we are going to hell because we ain't doing a damn good job at all. And I'm talking about anybody that professes Marxism, communism, anarchism, socialism, whatever it is. Look at your numbers and look at your ranks and look at you. You know how I would feel after 50 years in the movement. And here we are now trying to figure out what book to read. We got to have a PE class. Are you scratching your butt or what? What? You know, and all the, well, I'm getting off the point. Anyway, it helped me to realize that that success and victory comes from Allah. It chilled me out tremendously in my mind that the sun and moon, it doesn't rise up on Jihad Abdulmumit. That you do what you can and you rely on Allah. And that's not a pacifist thing, because I'll beat the hell out of somebody. I'm not a pacifist. Don't get me twisted. You know, don't ever. You got to listen to clearly what I'm saying. It strengthened me in the prison and relieves the stress, you know, of the outcome of things. But the real thing was, here, let me just tell you this, then I'll shut up. Check this out. You take a jar, right, and you fill it up with sand halfway, and then you take 5 rocks and try to put them in there, may not fit. Those 5 rocks you can say are the pillars of Islam. You know, the taking of Jihad, the Salat, the Zakat, fasting of Ramadan, and then going on the Hajj. But if you put them 5 rocks in there first and put the same amount of sand, it'll fit. It's a matter of your priorities. If you put a lot of other things first, then you won't be able to do the things that Allah is asking you to do. You know, the making of salat. That's in every authentic hadith of the Prophet. The first thing that you're going to be asked, if you believe in the afterlife, if you don't believe in, this conversation is just probably just interesting to you, is about your prayers. Allah is asking you to do this, and I promise you that. But if you don't do this, if we think that we're going to do this and that, we're not doing a good job with that. You know, and but it changed my life to realize that. It also changed me from being just a straight out roughneck, so to speak, and I was.
It's coming out. It's coming out.
I got too many rough edges now. You know, and talk to me. They say, "Oh, don't get that, brother, man." You know, but that's just how the BLA was. You know, so that's how I was anyway. It wasn't up there doing this and thugging it out with the police. That's for sure. It took a certain attitude about that joint. But it really changed my attitude from being that to being a statesman for our people, an ambassador for our people, with dignity and, you know, and yes, sir. I stopped saying pig. Not that you wasn't a pig, but it changed how I'm going to represent a nation of people. You know, am I going to be, I'm a name caller, or I'm going to really be a scientific thinking person, you know, when it comes to adding pride and dignity to Black people, to new Africans? Am I going to be that statesman the best that I can? It changed my whole demeanor and how I looked at myself and even how I looked at the enemy. So it wasn't no big deal to say, "Good morning, sir," even though I would take you straight out. It didn't change what I had inside. It changed how I represented myself. You know, and in this society today, I think that's going to have to be a very important role, how we interact in a high-tech modern society that we are living in, called the United States of America. Otherwise, we will be constantly a leftist, marginalized group of people ranting and talking and making no effectual change. We will not have applied our brains to doing anything in this society that's going to feed, clothe, and shelter ourselves, except having little liberated land spaces, if we even have that, knowing nothing about anything, complaining when our healthcare is not good, and not trying to devise a plan of our own. There's a lot that we're going to have to figure out, but Islam had those answers for me, and it liberated my mind to a level that I can, and even in this ongoing, it's not a thing that you stop learning, you know. So the revolutionary part of Islam, of Ramadan, I'll just end on this, my dear sisters and brothers, you know, on this particular point, is that even with this Ramadan, you make sure you read that Quran and make them prayers. Because this month is to focus on our ibadah, our strict worship of Allah and understanding. It's a devoted month It's a devoted month for that particular purpose. It doesn't mean you stop. Wars were fought during Ramadan. Doesn't mean that you lay down your joints or that you stop being active or you stop campaigning to free our political prisoners and prisoners of war, that we out in the community feed, clothing, and sheltering people and defend them against police and state violence. Doesn't mean that. But your focus in this month is to pick up a book called the Holy Quran and read it section by section every day and make those prayers, because Allah is extending himself to you in a way that's given us an opportunity to reach a level of spiritual development. And when we say blessings from Allah, it's not the blessings that you're necessarily thinking of. Well, my life didn't change. Otherwise, we're looking like a rich preacher in the church. Well, you just follow Jesus, you'll be rich. No, it's not that type of blessing. It's the blessings that it's untold blessings that you may not necessarily even see, but they are there and exponentially there during this month of Ramadan. I hope I didn't talk too much. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good, Baba. All right. So Dr. Abdul Khabeer, part of again what we're up to in this talk was trying to lift up or lift the veil, if you will, around the impact of Black Muslim women as a backbone of community organizing, of liberation struggle, from Assata to Sophia Bukhari to the own work you did with your mom around Umi's archive. If you could talk a little bit about that work and how it helps us to understand the role of Black Muslim women in liberation struggles, and then through that lens, how does that help us then kind of almost even reshape how we understand Black liberation?
It's interesting. I'm sitting here listening to Baba Jihad, and he's reminding me of my mother, right?
That's that Panther talk, yeah.
but also
that's a good thing, right?
But in the sense of like that generation of people, they came to Islam like one of the things I like to always say, it's like they had, it's like this idea in the says in the Quran, you hear and you obey. Like this is how they came to Islam, right? So it was kind of like, so even if there was something that maybe initially I don't know about this, whatever, I'm gonna do this thing. When I learn something else, I'll change if I learn it. But like I believe, right? I believe in Allah, so I hear and I obey, right? And that, and there's a kind of passion with that. There's a kind of roughness with that, because it's like, I don't really care about what you think or that thing, right? It's like, this is what Allah said, this is what I'm gonna do, right? Actually, some people she says that, she's in the article, she's like, I follow my conscience and I go with what, as long as it's not against what Allah and the Prophet said, I follow my conscience, right? So it's a very kind of really firm grounding. What I like to think when I think about these women, like my mother, when I think about them, I think about this faith that they had, right? I have a poem about this, so how it begins something like Black, beautiful Muslim, Black, bold, brilliant, beautiful women built this thing called Al-Islam in America with bare hands, right? And like they had this really firm faith, which made them fearless, like literally, right? Like there is no fear of anything except like this is something that is very clear, right? And when you walk in the world fearless, that's how you become a world maker, right? That's how you do these things, because you're like, I'm not worried about this person or that person. My only concern, my only fear is about what Allah wants for me, right? So I can do these other type of things. And so for me, it's like these women in general, I like to, I think it's another sister I want to bring in, her name, Zamir Ahmed. She was in the party, and she was in the Bay Area. She's from San Francisco. And there was someone interviewed her about her time. And one of the things that she said was like, what we did was we took care of people. That's what she called the work, taking care of people. And also, again, back to Safi Bukhari's piece, where she talks about like this, she's like, the easy part was like picking up the gun, right? The hard part was like this everyday work. I make this joke about my mother was a public school teacher. And as a young person or younger person, I used to be like, where's all this radicalism? I mean, I used to be like, I used to have this like internal kind of critique, right? Like whatever. And I didn't want to become a public school teacher because I was like, there's way too much grading. Because I should help her grade. And I was like, I'm not doing it. I don't want no parts of that. But when I spend time, Allah have mercy on her soul. I spent time in the archive now. I'm like, oh yeah, of course she became a public school teacher. Because you can't build a nation if you don't have educated people, right? And they're building people, right? Like I look a lot oftentimes, and I look at the communities I grew up in. I'm from Brooklyn, and like the kinds of institutions that I grew up with that don't exist anymore, really. Like some of just different institutions, whether they're businesses or schools or messages or whatever that are either don't exist or they're aging or whatever. And it can feel really kind of like demoralizing, And there are like structural reasons for all of this. But one of the things I always come back to is like the thing that these women in particular, like what they left behind was people. They're all these human beings in the world who care and want to make it a better place. Like this is their sort of like legacy, like I consider myself an heir, right? Nah, I don't have no much. I wasn't gifted a bunch of money, nothing like that, right? But like I inherit this legacy of like women and men, right, who are committed, like who have this unwavering belief, complete fear of absolutely no human beings whatsoever, right? This unwavering commitment to liberation of Black people, but also all people, right? Like this is what I inherited. And this is what I try to then, like live out in the ways that I can, we're all fall short in some ways, but like, it's like, I always tell people, I was raised free, like literally, because people will come to me and they'll be like, well, how come why do you feel, like, how do you do? I'm like, I've been thinking about what I can't do something? What you mean I can't do something? Yeah, I mean, I know about white supremacy. I know about patriarchy. I know all these things, but like I was raised free. And that's because they were free, right? They freed themselves because they weren't necessarily all raised that way, right? But to Baba Jihad's point about like what Islam gave them, right? I think this is the thing, like he said something that I wanted to just pick up on about tawakkul, about like trusting in God, right? And I think in the opening dua that the brother Josh gave, he said hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, right? Like it's like they usually translate it as I put my faith in Allah and Allah is the best to assort my fears, right? And like and I think I heard this, I want to say Imam Zayd here is where I heard this from. I'm not sure if it's his term, but this idea that liberation is a journey, not a destination. Because one of the realities is like, this is the dunya, this is the world. It sucks. It's gonna suck. There are gonna be good things, there are gonna be bad things. It's never gonna be perfect. It's just not, right? But what it is, we're trying to, like it's like Mariam McCabe says, we do this to be free us, but we're trying to live our principles as we move, right? You know what I mean? Because ultimately, if you believe in the afterlife or whatever, right? Like the ultimate goal is the next life anyway, right? But Allah also says, don't forget your share of this one. So we're not gonna be like, oh, well, I'll just sit here and wait until I die. Like we're not doing that either. But there's this kind of sense. So anyway, I just want to say, I think this idea of like tawakkul is really powerful because it does, like, if you're really grounded in it, and this is something that I work on all the time, right? I'm like, and I say hospital a lot to try to work on this. If you're really grounded in that, you're not so stressed out about everything. You really aren't. It's like, yeah, we got to do this. We got to organize. We got to be better. We got a lot of this we got to do. But like when you recognize that ultimately, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do. That's not what I want to say. What I want to say is that, but ultimately, like Allah is in control, right? So you do your part, but the ultimate outcome is not yours to determine. And when you just kind of let that go, I do think it kind of helps you like get up the next day and try again, as opposed to feeling like I got to do everything. You know what I mean? Like there's something I think really powerful and profound about that as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I'm just gonna wrote down kind of walking the world fearlessly, right? And this idea. And there's something that is very beautiful and relaxing about like, yeah, trusting in Allah. Like it's yours. I plan, you the best of planners. Absolutely. We're gonna start to bring this conversation to a close. So I got kind of two more questions to close this out. So back to you, Jihad. As we try to again make Ramadan even more revolutionary. Why should Muslims and people of faith be a fight for political prisoners?
Right. Bismillah. Because we're as we're commanded to, we're commanded to free the captives, and that just so then that's an action call, a call to action. So embedded in Islam, in the core of Islam, as Allah mentions in the Quran, about freeing the captives and struggled and fighting to free the captives, our political prisoners, even when it comes to just the fight against mass incarceration in general, our people in general. I mean, but we're focusing on our political prisoners too, but I'm talking about the unjust incarceration, of tens of thousands of people of color, and all people for that matter, that's unjustly incarcerated, So Islam is it grounds you in this, and I just, it is, mashallah, Sister Suad, that we don't have those powerful examples that we need to have in the right place and right time. But again, so as you said, Allah's the best of planners, Makaru, Makullah, Allahu Qaidun, Makirin. They plan and Allah plans, and Allah's the best of planners. So, but we need to get to the point of those examples so that we can feel that strength. But that type of critique and even criticism goes to all of our movements, even those that are not Muslim. You ain't doing too swell your daggone self. Really, anybody. I'm talking about anybody that believes in anything and anything. Look at this. I'm starting to become a number counter, a head counter about who's there. We had a successful feeding event. It's about 7 people in line. I mean, if you're getting used to this, then, I don't know how we're going to defeat the beast. But something else going to, what's the definition of insanity? Keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So that's a reflection for anybody that believes in anything, not just a critique of Islam. So whatever you believe in, how's that working for you? And I'm just being cynical. Forgive me for that. I'm just trying to bring out a point in a way that's going to make you upset. but Islam is rooted in Islam is the command to free the captives. Just like Sister Suad said, we hear and we obey. That's what we do. And we figure out how to do it the best way according to the Sunnah, like that. But we should be out there, and for all Muslims, and it is a critique. We cannot be like in the church on Sunday and just praise the Lord and come out and do nothing. It is a marching. If we was to really practice Islam, we would talk about something serious, which it goes into a very serious thing, but I don't have time to bring that out in terms about the dynamic of governance and what does that really look like. If anybody, right now, we all try to be together, which we should be, but in the power of nations, the dynamics of nations, if those dynamics even play out the way they used to, because they're not playing out like that anymore. Well, one country takes over another and they begin to impose their law on something. We see that with the Europeans, and African nations and such, but in our own movement, we say that we are together in many different ways, but what happens, how does it play out with our governance if we have any type of victories? How is justice to be ensured? Well, it's Islam, it is in the principles, but it's our marching cry to free the captives. That's why in this, oh yeah, I lost my thought. That's what Sister Suad said. A lot of us and your mom, you came into Islam through a movement that already had you energized on this page. Now Muslims are coming into Islam not from a movement, which alhamdulillah, however you come, but we don't have that political movement grounding, and so therefore it comes off kind of lukewarm and diluted and detached. So I don't know. So building the movement on the ground, however that is done, but Islam being the icing on the cake, freeing the captives is something that's synchronized to any movement, not just Islam. It should be any movement that talks about the liberation of anything. It does not have in this crux and its center. The freeing of political prisoners has to be questioned. It has to be questioned. You have to add that to it in a very serious type of way. So I'll leave it there for Sister Suad to pick up on.
All right. I got another, because Jamil is in the chat asking me to make sure I ask the question that he wanted me to ask you all. And it's really about the Muslim communities that you all belong to, and how do you understand those communities being in the fight and the struggle for liberation and oppressed people?
Yeah, so I realized I wanted to say one thing about the last question, because you asked me about like women, and I talked about them in a broad general sense, right? And I just wanted to, I guess, come back just quickly to say, like, the roles that women play in general and Black Muslim play in particular, obviously, like as caregivers and mothers, right, as teachers especially, but also leaders, right? And these are, I think, some of the areas, right, where we see, like, leadership, whether it's in a masjid, whether it's in a Muslim school, whether it's in creating businesses or whatever, one of the things I often talk about is like fashion. Fashion is very important to me. That's also something that they taught me growing up, right? But this idea of authoring, like there's a way of like authoring ways of being in the world, right? Like this is very much, I think, what Black Muslim women do. They like create new ways. They chart new ways. They forge pathways that other people can then come and follow. And so I think, back to that perspective thing too, that I was saying, I was like, interesting, like, because I, was sort of raised with that movement, like, as he put it, my frustrations are when this idea of Islam revolution is a contradiction is not coming from like the Marxist somebody, but it's coming from a Muslim who's like, well, that's not our concern, or we shouldn't be involved, or we should, like couching this sort of really counter-revolutionary ethos within like Islamic kind of terminology, right? And it's something that I never thought I would ever see, particularly not from Black people in Muslim, but you see it, and it's bizarre, and I don't really understand it. And so part of my thing when I'm like, the rituals are important, but what about this, is because I've seen people who can, sort of like give you a very precise breakdown of like the fiqh of tahara, right? Of the jurisprudence of like cleanliness. But then we'll go and tell you, right, not to protest. And I'm just like, and not because it's a strategic thing, not because they're like, oh, you should do this other thing. No, it's like, you know what I mean? So like this, so then that's why I come from a different place, right? Because I'm like, I know how to pray. I've been praying my whole life, right? Right. Everybody taught that there's 50 classes you can go to in a masjid or community about prayer, right? But where is there something that's helping people gather and organize themselves from within a Muslim community, right? To sort of like organize, for example, right? Now, that's a broad kind of swath, kind of covering of things. I mean, frankly, I think like, I think Black Muslim communities are like Black communities, broadly speaking, right? Where we have this kind of a lot of challenges when it comes to imagining something different and then working for it. I mean, and I won't get into it. There are tomes on this, right? But I think this is the same thing. And so part of, I think, what I like about this idea of a revolutionary Ramadan, and I want to just quote one other thing, because I meant to mention, so Albert, Washington, so I was in the Schomburg Research Library in New York City a couple of years ago. There was a book by Robert Dannon called Black Pilgrimage to Islam. His tapes are at the Schomburg, where he interviewed all these people. So he interviewed Albert Washington, who I did not know was Shia, which was really cool to find out, right? And he interviews him about like how he became Muslim, why he's Muslim. And I saw it in the chat, someone cited the verse. And so I just wanted to note it because he said it too. So I think that Allah will not change the condition of people so they can change it of their own selves. And he mentions that, right? In this interview, he's mentioning this as kind of how he understands Islam as a force for social change, right? In that same way. So I guess, so anyway, I'll just stop there. I don't know if it really answered your question, but these are some things that was important to share.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. All right, we're gonna get into some of the audience questions. We've got three, so I'll just throw them out, and however spirit guides, which one of you all want to jump in, or both. The first one is, how do we fight sectarianism? Ooh, it's getting late. I need some water. Within our communities, this settler colonial empire is hell bent on dividing us.
Yeah. Okay. Bismillah. All right. So I'll take a stab at that. They were very, very successful in dividing us. Sometimes I think that the struggle, they done a job on us. They gutted us in so many different ways, And first of all, you during one era, you took a lot of warriors out, assassination, incarceration, um, humiliation. I mean, the whole marginalization, and then I think so. The movement was undermined strategically by the government. They did a very good job. They did ruthless violence, imprisonment, and assassination of us. And so now here we are trying to pick up the pace. Then also the infusion of drugs, the distraction, like Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz said, blood running all down your jaw, but they put that Novocaine, which I don't know what they use today. It's not Nova, but the same thing, to numb it. And then, Gidgets, Wadgets, and George Jackson said, there's so many things. You ain't trying to give that up, man. But that's another story, But no, people aren't. Just go out. You know what I say? Go outside and see if you find anybody that thinks like you beyond these calls here, beyond your office. Malcolm X grassroots movement, Black Alliance for Peace, Community Movement Builders, Jericho, all these other organizations. Go out beyond your comradeship and see what's going on, and you will see what's going on. Then you just have the Super Bowl. It's a lot of distractions on purpose, and George Comrades has spoke about this, and it has a numbing effect, a distracting effect. And then the organizations that exist, they're trying to hold on to their own flag. I mean, it's not that whole Ubuntu concept that I am as we are because we are. It's not really there like that. I don't know. That's what I see from an organizational thing. By the way, I stepped down from the chairmanship of Jericho Comrades, and so I'm just on the board of advisors. I went to, because I believe that I should leave space for younger sisters and brothers to take that leadership. And as long as I'm there, they may not take that leadership. So while I'm still alive and can do my push-ups, I decided to step down and mentor, sisters and brothers into that position rather than be African leader for life. I didn't want to be that. Step down, Jihad, do something else creative and stuff like that. But anyway, I just wanted to make that for the record's sake like that, But we've been, our minds have been, I don't know. It's hard. There's so many ways to answer that question, my dear sisters and brothers who have asked that question. But, I was in, last thing I said as an example, I was, this may be something very debatable here, but one of my workout partners in prison, and Sister Suad, I know I said this probably when I was at the museum talking, was Nidel Ayad. He was on the first World Trade Center bombing, a Palestinian brother, before 9/11. He was my running partner. And he used to always say, from a Palestinian point of view, and the Panthers always supported Palestine from 16 years old. I was involved in supporting Palestine against the Zionist Israel. But he would say it's just not bad enough. And now it's even worse, not bad enough, because it's a modern high-tech society. I'm in Cameroon right now. You know that it's after 2 in here.
Oh no,
I'm up
after
morning
you up.
I got a call. It was 1:00 in the morning, man. So I'm 6 hours ahead of anybody on the East Coast, just to let you know. I've been in Cameroon. I'm married in Cameroon. Going through green card process, but I'm here with my wife and her family and stuff like that. And it's not bad. You know what bad is? Like, I went to the capital. I went from Birchville. I live in Birchville in a rural red dirt, like Alabama type of red dirt area. I don't live in the capital and no modernization where I live at. And I've been here for months now, Sister Suad. I've been here. I've been here 4 times, and last time I've been here now for 5 months. So I don't come back to U.S. into April. But we're the type of bad, but even with ICE in the streets, it's a different shit. Excuse me, it's a different thing here, man. I'm telling you, I'm not here as a tourist. I'm not here in a convention where you're gonna see a bunch of comrades and we go back and talk revolution and man, they got it going on. I'm here. I'm living here now, and I see something much different, and bad is bad, and bad is a relative anyway. Doing bad is a relative thing, But I'm telling you, man, the United States, the modernization, the stores, everything that George Jackson talked about back in '76, Blood of My Eye, until now on steroids, even in our oppression. Nidela Yad was telling me it's not bad enough to make you really get off your haunches and do something. Because you're not going to necessarily wake up and find tanks on the street. Oh, this once in a while, it's ICE. They roll them back, they roll them out. And I even announced it up. Even if in the United States, what bad was, if you want to compare it during eras and times, like we're going through something like that. If anybody that's my age, you lived through the 60s. Now, the 60s, let me tell you something. They were shooting real live bullets into college student campuses on protests. They killed the standing president. They killed U.S. senators. They killed Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, Dr. Martin Luther King. We were getting picked off. They killed almost over 30 Panthers. They was killing us. And wake up, those are my comrades in an organization that I was with. They had 30 members killed over a period of time, shot to death by police. And, riot, burning the cities, not one city, many cities. They say riots, we say rebellions. And police violence, water holes gone. Man, you talk about. And so now we're in another era that's, like I said, it's all relative, and people are freaking out. America's on the decline, and this is they on the decline. Man, you see all that construction going on up in Nigeria. I don't know what you're looking at. You may make this thing, well, it might fall overnight. That's true, but I don't see no decline, not from looking from Africa into the United States and from living there. But anyway, it's just not bad enough for us to unite the way we should unite. They've developed a system of distraction, individualism that filters into our organization spaces, that we were trying to clutch to our own flag and claim victories to freeing this and doing that. And we're not working together, because it's not to the point to push us to do something different. That's my humble assessment of the situation. It's just not that bad. After I get off this meeting, if I was in the United States, it'd be about 9. I can go to Krispy Kreme and get a donut, or get some ice cream and go to a movie and watch some Netflix and chick back and turn on the TV, air conditioning going on. And what? You talking about revolution? You haven't even developed a plan how that's going to. Oh man, we be doing fine. I'm being cynical, y'all. Trust me. I really want to. I'm being cynical just to make the point in a ridiculous, absurd way, so you can kind of think about it and just won't let it slide like that. Not that you would do that anyway, but it's not. It's man, I'm gonna get it when I get back. I can't wait to get back to 96. I'm gonna get that iPhone 17. I'm serious, man. Everybody on the phone and rolling and going through the reels and distraction, get a car and this and that, a better job. You think that somebody that tries their best to get their family out the hood, send their child to college, so they can have a better life, that's going to upturn that thing because of somebody getting shot to death in Minnesota? Sonia Massa getting shot to death. Okay, the genocide has been so normalized that as Harriet Tubman, I don't think she said it, but they say that she said it, but even she didn't say it, it rings true. I freed 313 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if they only knew they were slaves. Mm-hmm. You can convince somebody, convince your own family. Is your own family part of Malcolm X grassroots movement? I'm not just being funny. Are they part of Jericho? No. Or our spouses or our partners or our children? Are they doing something else while you doing all this heavy lifting? Have we brought it? It's that the culture's not even there yet. I'm optimistic. It will get bad enough. The only thing about getting bad enough in the future, I hope it's not too late because society's been extinct. And the only thing that's going to be in that museum, Sister Suad, is one of us playing basketball because they're going to wipe out everything we knew.
All right. All right.
All right. I'll stop.
Yes, yes. All right. And kind of apropos, so if you would take us out with the last question around grief that was asked, and then we'll move towards close.
Yeah. Yeah, the question the question is, how do you deal with the grief that comes with experiencing the oppression we experience, be it deaths in our communities or witnessing genocide, etc. And I wanted to address that question of grief because I live with a lot of grief. My book Muslim Cool turns 10 this year. And I was just writing a preface. So like the press was like, you can write a preface for it, to kind of talk about it. And as I began to read the book, I started with the acknowledgments. And as I'm reading the acknowledgments, I began to highlight the names of all the people that have died since my book came out, including my mother, my grandmothers, aunties, my big sister friends, Imam Talib Abdul Rashid, who I interviewed, was in the book. Ibrahim Abdulmumit, who was a friend of mine who I cited in the book. Like it's an average of one person a year, basically, in the last 10 years, right? Including a divorce, because I was married for 16 years and now I'm divorced. So that's a lot of loss, right? A lot of grief. And I think it's important to sort of acknowledge the grief, right? And not sort of pretend it doesn't happen, but also recognize it as a source, right? So the work with Umi's archive comes out of my grief, right? But when I talk about Umi's archive, I say that it's a place where we remember so we can dream, right? The idea is that I look to the past, I look to my ancestors, I look to what happened, right? I remember it so that I'm inspired to sort of keep moving forward, right? There's a Malkia, what is their last name? Cyril Devich? They're a Panther baby, right? Yeah. They talk about this. I heard an interview they did, and I talk about this now. They call it mourning work. They're like, Black people, we have a lot of grief. We lost so much, but we don't let it like crush us, right? We kind of use it and build something beautiful with it, and they call it mourning work, right? And so I think for me, how you deal with the grief is, well, you like, one, I don't pretend it's not happening because that's a recipe for disaster. You know what I mean? Two, you give it its space, right? And three, you like work with it, right? So like, what are the kinds of things that it makes you feel, makes you think, makes you want to sort of move into, I think this idea of, I think this is our tradition. I think it's our tradition as Black people, as African people. I think it's a tradition as Muslims. You talk about Prophet Muhammad, he loved like his first wife, Khadijah. Like he cried for her from the day she died till the day he died. He never stopped grieving her, right? But he also did things like if someone loved Khadijah, he would do things for them in her honor, for example, right? Like there was this notion that like this loss, right? And if you think about, and I'll wax a little bit esoterical here, but if you think about like the most pious people in the Quran, right? And typically those, I guess, like prophets, right? Including Maryam alayhi salam, or like the wife of Pharaoh. Like there's a lot of loss and betrayal. Family member, like everybody got like it's crazy the kind of stuff that's happening in these stories. There's a lot of loss and a lot of betrayal, but it's something that you kind of work with to transform, right? So you want to learn from that. You want to remember what needs to remember. You want to, so you can keep moving forward. So that's all I want to say about grief. I think, like I said, I grieve a lot, right? I have a lot of grief, but I feel like it's something that, in this society, in the United States, there's not even rituals anymore, really, right? Like there used to be a time you had a whole set of things you would do, like if somebody died, right? And there's no time to go back to work tomorrow. You got to, just be over it. And we can't just get over it, right? But if we sit with it, we can learn from it. And I guess that's what I'm saying we should do. Like we should learn and we should make beautiful things with it.
Absolutely. All right, we have to pin it there. So in the chat, if we could give some love to our panelists and this amazing talk. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think I'm bringing back Jamil to bring us towards close.
Assalamu alaikum and free the land. I thank you all so much. This was very insightful. I really learned a lot as well. And I hope that, and it seems as though looking at the chat that everyone else learned a lot and are ready to really get down to the work. So now we are going to go over our call to action. Give me 1 second as I pull that up. So this is Black Love in Action Week, as we discussed. We've had several events, including screenings of documentaries about Assata community outreach. Now we're toward a revolutionary Ramadan. We also have a Kupingana Ngumi class, which is a form of New African martial arts, as well as Kamal Siddiqui's birthday, which is coming up, in which locally we will engage in writing letters as well as birthday letters. This is his birthday. Additionally, we encourage everyone to write to political prisoners, write to, like Mumia Abu Jamal, who's pictured here, as well as Kamal Siddiqui, his birthday on the 19th. Definitely write him a letter honoring his birthday, and keep in touch and keep this line of communication open. This is a very important thing. Additionally, other political prisoners such as Imam Abdulmumit Kaba, his birthday, Jeff Fort, his birthday is coming up as well on February 20th. Reverend Joy Powell's birthday is coming up. I believe she's turning 64 years old on March 5th as well. So it's very important. It's a way to let political prisoners know we haven't forgotten them, keeping them connected in the community and our movements. And we also motivate you all to hold letter writing events for Kamal Siddiqui, yes, but also for many of our other political prisoners who we have discussed. And we've written letters to incarcerated individuals and political prisoners. It's important to teach this to the community so that they know what our political prisoners have contributed to the struggle, but also so that they can build a critique of really the United States empire, as well as a critique of prisons as a whole to free all of our people as well. So people who are incarcerated, especially our political prisoners, are under extreme control, surveillance, and isolation. Expressing love and support is very important, but we also want to make sure we don't write anything that could harm them or their cases. So also be very intelligent about this as well. I will also say the Jericho movement has a great website that has the addresses of many political prisoners as well. Based in Ohio, I know we have hosted letter writing campaigns, for instance, for Imam Sadiq Abdullah Hassan, who is a political prisoner, part of the Lucasville five prison captives. During the Lucasville uprising, who were specifically targeted by the administration and our own death row. So those are other political prisoners as well. Additionally, the Malcolm X grassroots movement has also launched Freedom All Circles, right? We're launching these in the cities in which we have chapters. I know in Columbus, Ohio, we don't have a chapter. However, we're also launching this at an event with Black Men Build in April. So we have Freedom All Circles, and these are local committees of MXGM organizers, members, supporters, and allies. leading political prisoner organizing all year round. So really what we're doing is we're bringing awareness to political prisoners. We're focusing in each of the cities on specific political prisoner campaigns, working in line with other organizations to identify political prisoners. We want to focus on particularly those, who are known in the given locale in which we are based, right? So we're leading teach-ins and we're engaging in letter writing, fundraising efforts, and working to build really a liaison with the various political prisoner campaigns that exist. So I know that Akil at the beginning of this conversation discussed the various chapters we have of the Malcolm X grassroots throughout the movement throughout the country. And really look up if you're in one of the cities, the chapters, get acquainted with one of the chapters, ask them about the Free 'em All circles. And inshallah, if your heart is led to the Malcolm X grassroots movement, we have plenty of room for you here. So now we're going to move to another part of our program. We're going to listen to a poem by one of our very own members, Kel Shabazz. Kel is one of our comrades who's actually based in Cleveland, Ohio. And I see that he is in the attendees list. Jomo, I don't think I have the capabilities to bring him into the panelist portion. Could you do that on your end?
Got him. He's on.
All praises due to Allah. So we will.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. I'm glad to be here. So the title of my poem, it is called When I Get Free. And I dedicated this poem to Imam Jamil al-Amin, formerly known as H. Rap Brown. I would just like to begin to say that, my first introduction to Islam as it related to the liberation struggle was through Malcolm X, but I didn't fully understand what it actually meant to be a revolutionary activist and tying that in with Islam until I learned about Imam Jamil Amin. So this poem is dedicated to him. When I get free, I'ma finally let go of this dunya, its trials, troubles, and its alluring amusement. When I get free, the system will think it has won. They'll rejoice to see you cry, but when a revolutionary dies, revolutionaries multiply. When I get free, Jannah won't feel far, just one breath away from the garden's promise to the patient. When I get free, I'll breathe without barcodes. When I get free, I'll speak without surveillance. Understand, a single seed in a cell block can grow a forest. You were a forest long before they buried you in concrete. You see, everybody can fight, but not everybody can win. But you won, and you finally free. Poem.
Thank you so much, comrade. That was awesome. Yesterday, we had a revolutionary poetry event in which there was an open mic, and we also listened to poetry, from many of our different comrades as well as elders. We've revisited Sonia Sanchez, Marshawn McCarroll, who passed away in, I believe, 2016. We revisited some of his work, organizer based in Columbus, Ohio. So I would like to thank everybody who attended. We truly appreciate your attendance, and we call you to action to act upon the things we mentioned in terms of freeing our political prisoners. Definitely in your cities, in your masajid, in your churches, in whatever organizations you belong to, definitely take this material, take the material even the Curb Fest has on their website, take the material even the Jericho movement has, take the material the Malcolm X grassroots movement has, and in each of your cities, please organize letter writing events or whatever events you can to expose your community and your people to the plight of our political prisoners. I would also like to thank our awesome program. Thank you, Akil, Jomo, Dr. Suad, Dr. Aminah Wadud, Kel, Sheikh Jihad Abdulmumit, Josh, Dr. Aminah, al-Deen, and everyone who participated in our program. And
And
last,
we want to thank you because you've been the heart of this program and the
it
vision
was your
behind it.
idea,
So we
though.
love
Yeah,
you. We
it
love
was
you.
your
We love you. Yes.
You came up with the concept revolutionary Ramadan, though. Uh, so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free all of our political prisoners behind the walls, free all of our people who are victims of mass incarceration, slavery, colonialism, imperialism, and oppression, and crush the hands and foundation of our oppressors forever. I mean, assalamu alaikum and free them all.
Wa alaikum salam to Allah.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Ameen, ameen,
Assalamu
ameen.
alaikum. Free the land.
Free the land.
Free the land.
Free the land.
Yes.